Welcome from the Music City Center, Nashville, Tennessee. We're here at the EMS World Expo, the largest EMS dedicated event in the world. This is EMS World Presents Stories from Expo. Your story continues here.
I'm Aaron Gutzman, and this is EMS Garage podcast / EMS World podcast. We're here in Nashville at the EMS World Expo. I didn't get your name.
My name is Morten.
Morten. Nice.
Yeah.
So you're giving a speech, or you spoke yesterday?
Yeah, we had a pre-course yesterday, a whole day course, 8-hour course in lecturing about teaching and teaching in EMS.
And give me the elevator pitch then. What's the nuts and bolts?
The elevator pitch for the whole course, teaching course, is that we have an idea that there is it's time to change the whole aspect of how we teach and develop teachers and learners within EMS. So the Teaching Corp is a corporation of people that is passionate about teaching within emergency medicine. And this time was the first time we did a special EMS teaching course where everything was designed only for EMS and focused on the areas and around EMS.
Okay, so let me ask you, is there something we're doing wrong? Like, is there one thing you're like, everyone's got to fix this, or is it just kind of a misguided approach in general?
That would be rude, because there's a lot of people that's been doing great things over the last many decades. But there is one general thing that we can say, and that is that we don't put enough resources into educating our educators. We kind of have an idea that if you're a good medic and you've been doing it for a while, you can precept.
Right, yeah.
And that's kind of like the main thing we focus on, that we need to educate our educators better. And I can even add on that we probably need to educate our learners to be better learners, so we can get better results and more learning outcomes.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I feel like there's a huge emphasis placed on, oh, you're a paramedic, you need to be a paramedic, but nobody ever says you also need a teaching degree. And obviously for educators within the system, that might be overkill, but it is always interesting to me that that's all it takes. You got your paramedic certification, you're good to go.
Yeah, and being a great paramedic is fantastic, but there's just no linear line between being a great paramedic and being a great educator. That's just two different things. So if we can improve people within the scope of teaching and learning, we could probably get more out of the resources we have, and we can just get better providers. So that's the whole essence of the Teaching Corp, is going out and giving people that like to teach the tools to develop a better program and just be better educators. So that's the elevator pitch and general consensus of it.
Okay. What do you think about, you had said feedback as well, feedback to clinicians in terms of QI, or in terms of education?
The topic that I spoke on yesterday was creating a feedback culture and the tools for giving good feedback.
Okay.
And one of the main things we focused on is there's one paper that came out not too long ago that spoke about creating a culture within your department and creating what's called an educational alliance. So you have your educator and you have your learner, and we need to make the educator know that they need to break down the barriers between the learner and the educator early in the shift or early in the program, because if you break down that relationship between the two, so they don't have this, there's something they call credibility judgment. So people that has to learn for something that they look up to have this weird sense of being like, you're up here, I'm all the way down here. So there's a unbalanced relationship between the learner and the educator. So if you can go down and break down those barriers by creating an alliance where I go down and say, hi, my name is Morten, I'm from Denmark. Where are you from? Oh, where did you go to school? Did you have to move here to do your rotation? Or do you play soccer? Do you play football? Are you a baseball guy? Are you married? Do you have kids? If you start out your shift with those kind of things, you have the potential of breaking down the barriers that make you trust me even more. So when we go down the line and I need to give you feedback, you don't have that scary look in your face when I approach you to give you constructive feedback, because you trust me. I'm like, we're equals.
Yeah.
So that's the whole thing. Create an educational alliance so there is a trust between the educator and the learner.
Do you think breaking down that barrier would also, so obviously in EMS or medical in general, there is a tendency sometimes to kind of eat your young,
Yeah.
right? So would the breaking down that barrier also help the instructor kind of come back, you're coming together rather, so then the instructor is not going to want to see you fail, they want to see you succeed.
Yeah, it's a matter of also learning the educator to remember that educating is also a process of you getting better at educating and learning more within your own scope as you go down the line. And so I have a tendency in my program to ask my learners, so what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think is wrong with this patient? And sometimes I really don't know it, so I don't have the answer to the question.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like creating an environment where it's okay to not know stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I want them to give me what their viewpoints of the patient's condition are, and maybe ask them later on, so what's the plan? What is the plan that you can lay down for this patient?
Yeah.
And I will say, I completely agree, or oh, maybe I have an input here and there, and let's mix it together and make a joint plan for the patient, instead of it being, I have to agree on your plan, and you kind of like feel like you're being tested on the plan.
Oh yeah.
So I would prefer that, and that would also be a humble thing for the educator to actually be honest and say, I don't have the answer to everything.
Yeah.
Of course I don't.
And I think that's a good way. I like that take, because oftentimes scenarios are based on an educator's real life experience.
Yeah.
But it's important to know that not every call, you're not training your staff to handle that one call you did last week.
No.
So you have to generalize it. I like that take. I like that approach.
There is an expression that is used commonly within healthcare when you say that someone is teaching out of what we call anecdotal evidence. So sometimes when you precept, you need to remember that there's a huge difference between your anecdotal evidence, what is in your basket, in your backpack of previous runs and experience, and what is actual the hardcore evidence for what we do. And these two things has to be fused smoothly together, so we like use the experience and the stuff we have in our backpack, but also remember that anecdotal evidence is not the right way to treat the patient.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you have, if EMS educators could take one thing away, what would your parting word be for?
If I can say it about feedback, there's 4 things you need to remember when giving feedback. That is the feedback actually necessary, or are you doing it for your own sake, to get it off your chest, not for the learner's sake? Then you need to ask yourself, is this the right time? It's not always the right time straight after a run or straight after something went wrong.
Yep.
So the third thing is consider if it's the right place. If it's in EMS, it's not always the right place behind the ambulance at the emergency department where there's 5 other colleagues listening to the feedback.
Yep.
And the fourth and last thing is, am I as an educator in my right frame of mind? And also, are the student in the right frame of mind to receive the feedback right now? So if I can give all educators those 4 things to think about every time they have to give feedback,
Yep.
I think the process of receiving feedback would be a lot better.
Right on. Well, I think you're in the right place. The EMS World Expo is all about education and informed education, getting EMS into a better care. I'm Aaron Gutzman, and this is EMS World podcast in conjunction with EMS Garage. For more information, check out the channel.